You and I are just too close to be able to say that. let's not say that. I purposely didn't want to first because of the array that we have at UT, and I'm always so glad to see indeed that we've got this in Russian, this kind of Novaya Pokolenie, the new generation of people who are going to, faculty who are willing to carry on this long tradition, as Alex showed, for German and for Italian and for French, of having play performances in our languages, to have someone who has done this for more than 1 year, a couple of years, to be our final speaker, to kind of give a history, kind of pass how this has affected work in Italian in this case. So it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague and dear friend, Antonella Olson, who is, as you might have guessed, from Rome, where she received her laurea in comparative literature and theater. She is a distinguished senior lecturer in the Department of French and Italian, where she's been working since 1984. That's actually even longer than I've been at UT. Just a little bit, but not much. She teaches Italian language and culture at lower division, upper division courses, including Italian literature and conference courses. In history, social changes, Italian literature and theater, and a signature course called Italian Drama from the Page to the Stage, which is where her title comes from. She is the coordinator of lower division Italian and has been the supervisor of first year Italian for many years. Now she is supervising the intensive second year Latin program, Italian program. And sorry about that. I have to give you another job. She's also the faculty advisor of Italian Club, which is how she got to go to theater the one time. And advisor and evaluation of the study abroad programs in Italy. She's the founder and the director of the Rome Study Abroad program in Rome, Italy. She's written so many textbooks, collaborated on so many online programs, published articles on drama in the Mariani's theater, and as part of her play production classes, and now has incorporated her own teaching methodology into her play class. As I mentioned, she's using part of this idea of bringing Italian plays from page to stage and vice versa in working with workshop and community. Please help me welcome Antonella Olson.
È stato troppo bravo, troppo buono, eh? Too good of a friend. You say too many good things now. Anyway, thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much, Betsy, for organizing this wonderful workshop. And above all, thank you to all for being here, still being here. Since 10 o'clock, you're still here. That's incredible. So, very quickly, an explanation for my title. I use, as Tom mentioned, I teach a signature course in English, right? That is called Italian Drama from the Page to the Stage. So I kind of borrow that title, although it doesn't really apply to the name of my class, the one I will be talking about today, which is Italian Drama Workshop. But I just want to point out something that obviously by doing theater, we do bring a text, from the page, from the text to the stage. The stage could be a real stage, could be our classroom. But another thing that I discovered that is very, very important, and I did in this class taught in English, is that the student, once they have act out a scene, not necessarily always from a play, sometimes from a novel as well, they go back to the text with a different approach. They can actually understand better what they just read. And that I could have discovered that really only in this signature course, because in the Italian Drama Workshop, that's the goal. The goal is that we have to understand, both ways. But I really come to reflect upon the importance of doing this in a class where the play production was not really the goal, like in the signature course, but the importance, how much the student, and if you did signature course, you know that the students are from everywhere, except humanities maybe, yes. But very few. So you really need to get into their field of interest, which often is not literature or theater, but the role playing, the acting out of some of the scene, it's really something that they embrace, and they help them immensely in going back into the text and understand the text better. So that's the reason why I wanted to also underline vice versa. So we talk about that. So globalization, this is our era of globalization. And globalization goes together perfectly with the other notion of transculturalism, which it means to see oneself in the other, which I think is very important, is the foundation of our teaching languages. So I think that as educators, it's our task to make sure that this attract students. We were talking during the lunch, there is a concern that the enrollment is decreasing in all languages. Of course, the less common, such as Italian, even worse, but we do notice this. So I think we have to do all that we can to make sure that the student keep thinking that taking a foreign language, which means directly learning about another culture, is something that they must do. Even if the engineer programs at UT or wherever does not require it, I'm hoping that the advisor will make sure to communicate the student the importance of this. So any workshop you can think of, I think we should do it at the freshman level, because this is fundamental, especially here in the United States. Every day we understand how important it is for our students, the future leaders of this country, to be familiar with a different culture. So I think that, we need to find all kind of subjects, right? I found out many years later, I've been here for like, what you say, 33 years? No, actually I shouldn't do that. I still love teaching, so it's okay, it doesn't matter. I think that theater, introducing theater, and we see at all level, really can make a difference, because I think that theater can really attract the student if we do it in the proper way. So that's why I found that image to talk a minute about the importance of still now, even more than ever, have our students study a foreign language equal a foreign culture. That's the main goal, I think, the culture. So what are the goals of teaching a drum in an upper division Italian course? There are three. The one that I think is very important is to fill the gap between lower division and upper division courses. So we know that in the former, we need to teach basic skills. So the content kind of, is the one that we sacrifice because we have so much to teach already. On the other hand, the latter is much more rich in content, but often the students do not have the competence necessary to initiate their journey into very difficult literary text. So that's one of the goals that this class keep in mind. And how do we do that? We try to bring together the performative and linguistic elements with the historical and socio-cultural elements as one whole thing. We don't want to separate, because that's what we do usually in lower division. Okay, it's all grammar, a few maybe notion about geography and culture, but that's it. We stop there, right? Then here we are in upper division. Okay, let's read 5 books in Italian of the major authors. A student get just lost. They end up going to PCL and read it in English, and then try to give their interpretation in Italian. So we must, find some kind of, common ground to try to do this. Now, so I really think that performative, it's a very element, it's very important in reaching this goal. And finally, to create a community. This has been my philosophy since 1984. I have a flag with, this is our Italian community. So I try to do that in various ways, like the Tavola Italiana, the weekly meeting, the Cineforum, the connection with the Italian community, which, believe it or not, exists. Actually, it's quite large in Austin, not just Houston or San Antonio. It's expanding. So we need to keep our connection open. We have a project, and Thomas knows that very well because thanks to him that I was able to produce the ETAL video, the educational video, will really put us in touch for real with the community and with Italy as well. So basically the idea behind was you don't have to be in Italy to be familiar with Italian culture. You can do it here in Austin, not just at UT but also outside, and we'll provide you the tool to get in touch with them. That's very important for the student. Maybe even mentioning a possible internship, a stage, or a work, you know, they can do that. So that to me is very important. Now, I wrote these words and you may say, well, they don't apply only to your class. Obviously not. This concept applies to all classes, especially language classes. We have to remember that when we teach a language, we are dealing with students that are much more vulnerable because they really had to go back when they were, you know, child and try to start all over again. So they feel vulnerable. So we need to make sure that we are vulnerable as well, that we stay at the same level and we accept that, okay? So the 3 C's words for me are fundamental in this class especially, which is collaboration. We need from day one to know that we will be collaborating with each other, that the success of one student equals the success of everyone. So it's not like you can do well, it's fine. No, if the other student don't do as well as you do, then the performance will suffer. Then this class will be taken in vain. So commitment, they need to know this class is a 3-hour class. We usually meet twice per week for 1 hour and 15 minutes. But as Alex said, and you will find out, this is going to take so much more time. Outside the time of rehearsal, office hour, for the pronunciation. I mean, it's much more than that. And you need to tell the student from day one. Community, I think I already talked a lot about the community. And then enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is the spur of this class. We do need to be enthusiastic. Even if you don't like the play, you still need to be enthusiastic because you are in this class. Flexibility. We are supposed to write our syllabus in August, right? And we need to write everything that's going to happen for the next 15 weeks. Okay, we'll do our best, we'll try to do it, but the first thing that I say in class, guys, I'll be flexible, but you have to be flexible too, because if you are not responding accurately, if you don't understand, if we need more time, I will change the syllabus. I must and I will. And so you don't want them to say, oh, the class was not organized. No, it was even too much organized. It's just that I want you to do well, so I'm answering, I'm being flexible. And freedom of opinions. Often, especially in my plays, are very controversial themes. So we need to tell them at a time that everybody not only is required to express their feeling, their emotion, their comment, they need to respect everybody else. So that it's written even in the course description, which they read and sign, so that obvious that they're aware of that rule. And then passion. I mean, without passion, you don't teach probably any class, but we know that, you know, some people do teach it anyway. But this class, without passion, it's impossible. But of course, we do have passion. As instructor, we created the class. Obviously, we are passionate about it. The trick is that we need to share our passion among our students. So you don't want them to sit there and look, oh, look, she's so passionate. I don't care, but look at her. You know? No, it has to be a passion that we share all together. Otherwise, you know, we can't go. And respect again. Respect, also respect for people who may be struggling a little bit in the class. We need to respect that. We need to understand that we need to help the person, and the person will help us later on for other, you know, in other field. So this is very important. There is no competition. You don't have to be, oh, I'm A plus, is C, let's go. No, we have to be all at the same level. Particularly for this class I teach, Those are the goals. Again, I always like to divide in three. I guess Dante Alighieri taught me a good lesson that 3 is the magic number. So a deeper understanding of Italian culture and history, the improvement in the pronunciation, but also in the intonation. This is something that I don't know if you do in other language classes. We don't in Italian. We stress a lot the pronunciation. Hopefully everybody does do that. I'm not sure, but yet that's the idea. But the intonation, really nobody cares, right? So in English, when you say something like, sometimes you do, well, I don't know how to imitate you, but sometimes I notice that English speakers go up, with this, without being a question, right? I'm going to show you a video. There is a girl. Los Angeles pronunciation. Okay, so that's very nice. I try to imitate it when I can.
And we were studying Italian, and it was so fun.
Yeah, exactly. Which is really nice, but in Italian it really doesn't work. So, things like that in a regular classroom, you really don't have time. I mean, you already have to think about the grammar, a little bit of the culture, the pronunciation. You really do not have time for intonation. This is the class where finally we will do just that. And then progress in the Italian language, obviously, right? So, I mean, we do that throughout the whole semester in all classes, but that's the goal of this classroom as well. So what I'm going to try to do, I'm going to try to stop on each of these 3 components. And, before I start that process of explaining each one, I just want you to see the grading policy. The reason why I want you to see that is because many, often students, but colleagues may think that this is just a fun class. Yeah, you devote a lot of time, but it's a fun class where students get in, read a play, and act out, which is absolutely not true. The students are doing both works. They do the work of a regular upper division, which is read, write, present, and on top of that, they have to act out, become actors, right? In that sense, I divide the class in 2, not 3. The first part is the academic, regular environment, and then the second part, I become a director, and my students become actors, costume designer, the whole thing, okay? So as you see, they have to give 4 oral reports, and I gave you, in the flyer that I gave you, you have just a description of one. I didn't want to kill too many trees, so I didn't put all 4 of them, but each one of them is different. So you have the description of the first oral report done in group with the rubric, and then the diary number 1, and then I also attach the beginning of the scene of the play we are doing in case we have time to act it out a little bit, so we can continue Devon energizing workshop. So that is what you, and I didn't put it there, but I also have the rubric for how to evaluate the final performances, which again is different from the 4 oral reports on culture. This class carries the global culture flag, so it's very important that we start, as it's written half in Italian, half in English because it was the first one, but they need to make relation not just with Italy, but with Europe, and if they can, the entire world. So whatever play we are doing, they need to make connection with a different country, always. Because also, I like to do that anyway, but we have to because it does have the global culture. They also write 3 journals, and very similarly to Alex, the journals are very important in the curriculum because I use them for the play. The first one, the one that you have there, again, it's a general reaction to the first part of the play, but then the second one is of the entire play, and the last one is the most important one because they have to write, thinking of Stanislavski, about the analysis of their own character once they finally have one. So it becomes really personal, very important. And then, of course, the final performance is 3 at the end of the semester. So there you have, this is the description of the way that I give assessment to the oral reports and journal, just to tell you that this is, this is quite serious. We then just stop in acting and pronunciation. It goes much deeper than that. So let me tell you a little bit about my experience with this class. I started a long time ago, in 1990, I think was my very first, the first time I did this, it offered this Italian drama workshop. And I still remember exactly, like if we were yesterday, was La Locandiera, a 1753 play by Carlo Goldoni. No? Carlo Goldoni, the Venetian playwright who kind of revolutionized the idea of the commedia dell'arte. He brought it at a completely different level. And it's a very, it's a comedy, but it's yet very, very political, because he talked about the advent of the new class, the bourgeois class. So it was important, and I did that. It was my very first one. Another time, talking about old playwright, in Rome, during my Rome study program, I directed the Mandrake, the 1518 comedy, the Renaissance comedy, by Machiavelli. However, I decided that that's really not for me. I'm much more into, 21st century ideas, politics. So I did that. It was fun, but I totally focused after that into modern and contemporary playwrights. So I think altogether I directed like 30 plays. I did 15 here. 15 here, it's every other year, just like you do. So 15 here on campus and another 15 in Rome. During the Rome study program, it's a program that I've been directing since '96. But I noticed that recently, the 6 weeks obviously are not enough for a play production. So we will always have to compromise. So right now we are doing videos project. They all love videos. We go with videos, with film, interviews, so we don't do play anymore. But again, my really love and passion is definitely for modern and contemporary. So what I'm going to do, because my play that I'm doing this semester is in progress, so I can talk a little bit about that, but what I have as far as showing to you assessment-wise, photo and so forth. It's this play called, it's not a play, it's a genre called narrative theater. I think that was probably one of my most loved by me and by the student play. It was, we had to put together 4 authors. And again, we were talking about how do you choose a play. To be honest with you, I'm very, totalitarian, but I choose the play.
Yeah.
I decided what I am passionate about, because I know that if my level of passion is elevated, I know that I can communicate. Now I know. I know, yeah, you can do it. If you're passionate, they will too. So I choose the play, and when I do it, I usually don't know exactly the student that will be there, right? Because the enrollment, you had to decide in May, so the enrollment hasn't been finalized. So I'm going to go really, I follow my instinct, basically. My instinct back then, also maybe because of, whatever was going on in the world, was that I want to relive the 60s and the 70s in Italy, which have been, from 1968, as in France, there was a revolution in Italy. Actually, in France was called revolution. In Italian was just called a movement, okay? But it kind of changed, not just the historical view of Italy, but everything. Society changed, the concept of families. Women's rights started there. Feminist movement didn't start then, of course, but it became very, very popular, and I felt the need to communicate to the student this. This is something that really we don't teach in any other upper division. So what I did there, I put together 4 authors whose work was from 1969 to 2011. And the thing is that, as the name say, narrative theater, those are all monologues. Each one of them wrote monologues, not plays. So our goal, which I do for every play, since this Italian drama workshop, is you have to analyze the play, you have to adapt the play, and then you perform the play into 3 public performances as a full-fledged play, right? So I adapt always the play, but this one was particularly challenging because they were all monologues and narrating things quite, controversial about Italian society, the transition, the change, the social changes during that period. So it took me at least a month or more than that to convince the student that it was all worth it, because I had quite a few that were not so convinced. Why are we doing this? Couldn't we just do a nice, playful comedy, which they know me well enough that no, that will never be the case with me, but maybe I could change, right? But they were still looking at me, why do I need to know? Then I said, well, let's make a bet. If you don't understand why we do the performance, why I chose this, then I lost. But no, actually, that was definitely one of my best performances. What I'm working on right now, it's another completely different, to show you that every time the gender is different. What I'm doing is 6 characters in search of an author. I don't know if you heard about it yet, by Pirandello. You have 2 days, 1921 and 1925. We are using 1925, Tom, so be ready that that's what it's going to be, 1925. Why that? Why do I have 3 acts in quotation mark by Luigi Pirandello? Because Luigi Pirandello is it's really a control freak person. It's a genius, we all know that. But he also wants everything to be exactly the way he wrote it. And if you read the play, the stage direction they drive you nuts. They tell you exactly what each actor has to do, how he has to move. They call everything, right? It's all there. So it will be easy in a way. If you don't have ideas, you can just follow exactly what he said to do. But obviously that's not the case, right? 6 Characters in Search of an Author has been probably one of the most represented play all over the world. So talking about checking YouTube's video, I chose the one, but there are too many. So I'll just give them some clips and they can see a little bit of how it's been interpreted, right? This is the play that kind of revolutionized theater. It's a meta-theatrical play within a play. And the first prima of this play, in 1921 in Rome, Teatro Valle, was a disaster. The first 2 acts were well received, but the 3rd act was so weird that half of the audience started, screaming at Pirandello, this is a madhouse. I mean, and Pirandello was there with Lieta, his daughter. So he felt, such a great mind, who lived for theater. He wrote much later in his life, but his passion since he was a kid was for theater, right? And theater is life in his mind. It's the best genre, literary genre. So he was devastated by this and went back home and started rewriting basically some of the plays. So we are using the 1925 version, okay? Is the one who influenced Ionesco, Beckett. It totally changed the idea of theater. So he won the Nobel Prize. I'm pretty sure he did win because of theater, or maybe even because of this play, in 1934, 2 years before he died. So, he's probably the most acclaimed playwright that we have, not just in Italy, but also in Europe. So, to go back to the 3 phases of my class, in the first part, we do need to understand the Italian culture and history. So I present, in this case, Pirandello. This is an image of one of the many play productions of the 6 Characters. But I don't do it just by myself. As you notice, I have the tendency to talk a lot, which is typical Italian. So I let the student come on stage, right? So they do the oral report, they do the research. I give a little bit, obviously, of foundation, but I want them to select what do they think is important. I mean, do we need to know that Pirandello has something to do with Freud, with Nietzsche? Do we want to know that? Do you agree that is an important issue, the crisis of identity of Europe? What do you think is important? Is it important that his wife was put in an asylum because of the relation with this man? I mean, what do you think is important? His personal story? The international background? Yes. So they decide and they do the group research and then they do the presentation, right? At least the first two are related. The other two are more about their own role and memorization. Just to give some kind of, background to my thesis is I'm thinking, and I call them planks, the Stanislavski. This is not a theatrical class. However, we do end up acting. So I'll keep in mind the maestro suggestion teaching that say that the external plane, the plane of social situation is very important as well as the literary plane. So we do need to analyze the play, the style, what is the author trying to tell us. We can't just think that is, something we're going to play, we're going to act out, and that's the end of it. No, at the end of the class, you need to let me know, what did Pirandello say, why did he say, what was his conflict, what was his goal. So it's more of a literary class, and that's when you make them ready to face later on a class. Even if this is not a bridge course, right? Did I say that? It's not a bridge course. Right. It's not, because we have one upper division prerequisite for this. So they do 601, 611, the intensive class, then they must take one upper division class, and then they can take this class. So it's not considered the bridge course.
So it's a standalone content.
It's a standalone, yes,
content.
Yes, it is. But students tend to take it before taking maybe, 375, which is the literary class, par excellence, the most difficult one. So one thing that I encourage you, if you do decide to incorporate theater in your classes, is if you get speaker. If the students see that you have support from outside, the UT community, it's like giving more credibility of something they should have it already, but they always need that more, right? So we are very lucky at UT because we have, thanks to the Department of English, they organize 1 week residency of the actors from the London stage. So they come from London, they spend a week, not just at UT, they go everywhere. Can't remember where is their base, I can't remember, but they do come here. And I believe they are available also for high school teacher, They can, so they give readings, they talk with the faculty, they go and visit classes, and then they perform one of Shakespeare plays. They are incredible, you really need, but they come only in the fall. That's the, yeah. And this year was measure for measure. They're incredible, there are usually 5 of them.